Vikings lose 30-20 to the Lions, finishing 7-10 and out of NFL playoffs. The Vikings' regular season finale in Detroit had a fleeting chance to be a postseason springboard, but a high likelihood of being a perfunctory task. The Lions began the day celebrating the first-ever NFC North title they'd clinched in Minneapolis 2 weeks before. The Vikings played without their best cornerback and 2 starting offensive linemen, losing 30-20 in a game that turned on big plays against their secondary and Detroit's persistent pressure of Nick Mullins. Results elsewhere had extinguished the Vikings' faint playoff hopes before the score at Ford Field went final, and the prospect of a break after a grueling season numbed at least a bit of the disappointment in the visitors' locker room. The finality of the team's 2023 season, even with all its flaws and frustrations, hit 2 of the Vikings' captains a bit differently. Justin Jefferson's emotions flared at various points of his 12-catch, 192-yard day, which tied his career high for receptions and followed his franchise record 223-yard performance at Ford Field a year ago. He stewed during a first quarter where he wasn't targeted, left the field with exasperation on his face after a second quarter sequence where he lost 12 yards on a reverse and the Vikings had to settle for a field goal after Mullins hit him for 4 yards on 3rd and 25. In the fourth quarter, after Jefferson had surpassed 1,000 yards in a season where a hamstring injury caused him to miss 7 games, coach Kevin O'Connell told the receiver he was thinking about removing him for safety's sake with the Vikings down 10. Jefferson told O'Connell in no uncertain terms he didn't approve of the idea. "You can't have it both ways, right?" O'Connell said. "You can't have a guy out there that's, whatever he went for, 192 yards, and 12 catches on 14 targets, competing like crazy to win the game. The reason why that is the fire inside. The frustration's going to come sometimes when we don't execute. And that's all part of it. I would be a little worried if it wasn't like that, to be honest with you." Jefferson has now finished 4 NFL seasons, having played fewer playoff games in that time than he did in 3 seasons at LSU. Harrison Smith, the safety who took his pads off at the end of his 176th regular season game with the Vikings, has played in 13 career games after the regular season. 6 of them are Pro Bowls. 23 season, his 12th in Minnesota and perhaps the last of his career, made the end of it easier for Smith to absorb. Pause to collect his emotions, then you're a loser. It stinks. Less than 2 months ago, the Vikings appeared in position to send both players back to the playoffs, with a 6-4 record that put them 1.5 games ahead of their closest competitors for a wild card spot. They lost 6 times in 7 games since then, in a season where quarterback changes, thinning defensive depth and pernicious turnovers repeatedly knocked them off course.